And this is not the porn addiction in me talking. I'm just asking the question because I know it's gonna sound like that. Is there any positives in porn? Like somewhere in the studies, is there something that is good from it, or it's literally all fucking crap?
There are some studies that took place 10, 15, 20 years ago prior to the explosion of it that showed that it educated a certain percentage of people, young people, about sexuality, about what was going on, about bodies. But I firmly believe, and I've read a couple hundred studies now, having done all the research for my
Mm-hmm.
books. And I have never, and whether it's about marriage, whether it's about kids, whether it's about partners, whether it's about the addict themselves, I have never read a study that comes to the conclusion that looking at pornography is healthy. The most you can hope is that, much like drinking, the most you can hope is that it won't be unhealthy for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like the person who goes and has a glass of wine with dinner once a week, there are
Mm-hmm.
people who can look at pornography once or twice a month and they don't develop the addiction. But it doesn't mean that it's healthy. It doesn't mean that it's good. It's there and it doesn't do damage, but I don't think it's a positive thing. In fact, if you look at the statistics with young people now, it is kind of the way that they get their sex ed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, prior to the pandemic, I was giving a speech at a college not far from here to a women's sexuality group at the college health center. And I went through my whole song and dance. And at the end, I did the Q&A. And one young woman said, "Have you heard about women our age not wanting to have sex with virgin men?" And I said, "No." And a lot of the girls, they started nodding. And I was like, "Okay, tell me about this." And what they explained to me was that young men are now getting all of their cues from pornography. But according to one study, 97% of pornography is aggressive towards the female, whether it's physical or verbal. And these guys think this is what women wants. And these women, and many women since then who I've talked to, have told me that when they get with a virgin guy, he will push them onto the bed. He will call them, bitch and slut. Put
That's
his hand,
crazy.
put his
Wow.
hand around her neck because that's what he's watched. That's what he thinks they want. He doesn't recognize that porn is not a documentary. Porn is not a reality show. Porn is pure fiction.
Yeah.
And a lot of girls don't want to have to teach these guys how to have sex. So
Mm-hmm.
they just stay away from virgin guys
Yep.
because porn is teaching these guys when they're 10, when they're 14, when they're 16, how to act with a woman. So when they finally end up, one on one, getting ready to have sex, they revert to what they've seen on screen. And that's not what real women want.
Yeah, I saw studies that showed that most women, like 90% of women, are not gonna want a guy long term if they have more sexual experience than them. Well, that's a big problem because a guy at 99 years old, if he survives till there, the average of sex partners of men is 13. And now there's studies that show that most girls at 25 have between 20 and 25. So out of nowhere, these girls all want a guy that has more experience, but most girls are running laps around most dudes. And so what happens is most of these girls are all go for that top 10% of men that are getting more sex than them. So it's like an automatic. And now one guy out of three between 18 and 30 hadn't had sex in a year or is a virgin. These are real stats, and this is incredible. I can't even believe this shit. It's incredible.
Yeah, and there was the same study that found that 97% of porn was aggressive towards the women. Also talked to college aged women and said how many times in a consensual sexual encounter did the man cross the line and you had to stop him? And it was 40% of the time. That
Wow.
4 out of 10 times a guy crossed the line of comfort for a woman. You know,
Wow, that's crazy.
that shows you just how many cues that men are getting from pornography, and that's not healthy.
It's like a lot of men push sexuality in the first 5 questions that they ask a girl.
Yep.
Or send their dick pic without the girl ever asking.
Yeah.
It's because these guys are desperate nowadays, and so they don't know how to talk to women. They don't know the approach. So because they see videos of them doing that money shot there, the sperm on the face of the girl. Most girls in life don't want sperm like that in the face, and I did it once because of my ex asked me this. And after it happened, I was looking at her, and like a French comedian said, he's like, honestly, there, you just look like a sad clown. And that is facts. It's like there's nothing. This is entertainment, but a lot of guys are gonna take it. Oh, so this is how we gotta treat a girl if they want us. No, she's an actress, and she's amplifying every sound. And so,
absolutely. Less than 20% of women ever have anal sex. Less than 20% of women ever have sex in a threesome or orgy situation. It just doesn't happen. Yet if you watch pornography, you know, you would
it's
think
everywhere.
the greatest job in the world is being a pizza guy because you get laid every night.
Or that Uber.
Yeah, or you know, tell your stepsister to try to take clothes out of the dryer so she gets stuck.
Oh my God, yeah, that's new. The stuck and free use is crazy. I never thought that we would come to a category that the girl is just acting like the guy's not in the room and she gets fucked. So she literally keeps eating her cereal. Let's say the video is this, and the guy just does what the hell he wants. Isn't that just the dream of most men deep down there, just pressing pause, like time freeze? That's what Japan used to do. They called it time freeze. So he would freeze a room and then he would take advantage of any girl and just leave.
Yeah.
Those are some of the biggest categories now in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some effect strategies that someone in the early stages of recovery realizes that he's going to face there?
Well, ultimately, the first part of recognizing recovery is not that ending the behavior is the biggest part. Now, we can reduce your use of pornography usually by 75% in the first month through
Wow.
different techniques, through diversion, through creating new habits, creating new routines. Many, depending on who they are, there are many different ways to get them to slow down. But even if you stop completely, that's not the end of it.
Oh my God.
Addiction is not the main problem. Addiction is a symptom of the main problem. The
Mm-hmm.
main problem is that unresolved trauma. That's what needs to be solved. You are using pornography because of that unresolved trauma. So ultimately, once we start to get we get the behavior way down or we get the behavior stopped completely, that allows the brain to start to heal. We know that physically the brain is always changing. And if you're not feeding it these chemicals all the time, it will basically reset. It will basically become healthy over time.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what age you are in your health, that can take different amounts of time. But that's something you have to stop the behavior so the physical healing can begin. And that just happens on its own. What
Mm-hmm.
I focus on is the mental side of it. Why did you become a person who was an addict? What happened to you to lead you to become this person? And for the first time in most people's lives, what I do is have them tell me their life story. Most people never tell their life story. And most people don't have someone like me asking questions and saying, do you think this has to do with this? Have you noticed this has to do with this? And it's very eye-opening for a lot of them. They make connections and they have what we call in the recovery trade the aha moments of, holy crap, I should have figured this out when I was 14. Maybe I'm 35 figuring it out, but at least I'm finally figuring it out. And that's really what my job is in recovery, because I don't think you're recovered until you go back and figure out what the problem was. These days, I don't have urges to use porn. I don't have urges to drink, because the reasons I did that stuff, I have resolved, I have taken care of, I have processed and gone through them. So it's like putting gasoline in a car. If you don't have a car, you don't need gasoline. Well, I don't have this trauma anymore, so I don't need the addictions that go with it. If you kill the trauma, you kill the symptoms of the trauma, which include the addiction.
For sure, you got to reduce and kill the trauma, right? Like you said, or else it's just gonna keep coming in a way there, because you're always gonna want to evade. That's why when I stopped the drugs, like I was looking for that thing to give me dopamine or give me a flame in me that I didn't have anymore, because cocaine used to be the flame. And before cocaine, I was good. But now I was realizing, man, I lost something. And it took like mon orgueil in France, my ego, to step on my ego, being like, okay, I really need something new. So that's when I started energy drinks. And I'm not saying energy drinks are good, but I had to replace this with something. I needed that flame back. And for addictions, if you can find a passion or something that you're passionate about that lights you up, and that you just, well, that becomes a drug, people. But a lot of people don't have passions nowadays, don't have hobbies. I find, you ask a girl what kind of hobby she has, is she's like spending, going shopping and going to the beach. These are not hobbies.
I look at my phone. I look
Yeah.
at my phone. That's a great hobby. But yeah, absolutely. And, you know, when people ask me, what do I do to replace it? You know, what do I do to get that high? And you're not supposed to get that high. You're not supposed to get that high.
Exactly.
You are
That's good.
You developed addictions because you did not develop the proper coping skills, the proper problem solving skills when you faced whatever that trauma was. So, in not producing those proper problem solving skills, you found the addiction, you found that shortcut to those chemicals that you're not supposed to find as a healthy person. You are supposed to deal with life as life throws itself at you. You are supposed to deal with the problems in life as they come in an all natural way. That's the way the body is designed. It's not designed to get these shortcuts to create these chemicals. That's why people end up in such trouble with addiction.
So many people that I know that stopped a drug somewhere or addiction to alcohol, they all realize that there's missing something in them after.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes not even the drug, exactly like you said. You're just missing this dopamine hit and adrenaline of how that rush made you feel.